be the most long-distance call I've ever made.
This is Jessica Duffy.
Hi, Mike Pence.
Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you too. Thank you.
Of course. Let's see. So I'm sure you've done this plenty of
Hey, everybody.
Is that good? Okay, so you're actually going to have this headset on.
Okay, great.
What side of your ear did you do? That one? Okay. So when we're talking to the crew, every time you hit this button, you're going to hear what we call a clinger. It's going to be like a key. And then as soon as it's over, then you can start talking.
Okay.
And you're not ready yet.
Okay, do I press that, you're saying?
Yep, you'll press down. And
When
then
I speak. Okay,
Yep.
great.
Okay. Don't press it yet. Okay.
You set?
Okay. You good?
Great.
And I'm going to answer.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Can you hear?
Houston, this is Station. We are ready.
Marshall Space Flight Center, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
In
station, this is Jessica Duckworth at Marshall with Vice President Mike Pence. How do you read me?
Well, thank you all very much. It's great to be here at the NASA Marshall
Flight Center, and it is a particular privilege for me to be able to address all three of you at the International Space Station. I bring greetings this afternoon, Randy and Mark and Joe, from President Donald Trump. I just hung up the phone from him, and he wanted me to convey his admiration and appreciation for your service and your courage, and it's really great to be with all of you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome aboard the International Space Station.
Well, thanks so very much. I know each of you served in the armed forces. Randy and Joe were in the Marine Corps, like my son, and Mark is in the Army. Now you serve as American astronauts, and I want you to know the President and I and every American sees each one of you as true trailblazers in a great American tradition. You may not be aware, but the President asked me to chair a restart of the National Space Council, and I want to assure each one of you that the National Space Council will be looking we're looking to build on the historic work that you're building on today, and I can assure you that under President Donald Trump, America is determined to lead once again, not just in low Earth orbit, but once again leading the world in space exploration. And we're just really honored to speak to three courageous Americans who are such an essential part of NASA's mission today. Let me maybe throw a question at each one of you. Mark and Joe, I understand you both just arrived in space about a week and a half ago. Can you describe for an Earth dweller like me what it's like in the early going?
Well, especially at the beginning, it feels a little bit like someone's holding you by your feet upside down for a while. It can be a little uncomfortable, but it's amazing how quickly human beings adapt.
How about the rest of you? Any impressions that you can interpret life in space to somebody like me that's just looked on my whole lifetime and admired people like you?
Well, let me just say, it's an awesome feeling. It's really an honor and a privilege to be up here, to be serving our country and doing all this great research. But I think all of us have the little kid in us, so to be able to float around and just kind of just break free of all these ties that we have on Earth. It's quite a remarkable feeling, and hopefully someday more and more people can come up and experience this.
Thanks for the acrobatics behind you there. That was actually very impressive. Let me maybe throw another question at you. I'm going to take a look here at the Space Launch System that's going to carry your fellow astronauts into deep space. Can you talk about how the work you're doing now affects deep space exploration?
Well, Mr. Vice President, we can definitely say that if you get to see that engine firing today, that'll be a sight to behold. It'll something you'll always remember. And those engines are going to power the rocket that takes, the spaceships like our Orion up to orbit with the people inside. And you'll hear about EM1 and EM2, our test flights that are coming up here real soon. In spacecrafts just like this, actually maybe a little larger than this one, but an Orion spacecraft built in the U.S., you meant to go do deep exploration missions. And the work that we're doing is so that we can survive when we're in that, going into deep space places. How does radiation affect us up here? Well, we're up here for 6 months at a time, seeing how it affects us. We're looking at nutrition, muscles, bones, all these types of things that are really important that degrade while we're here in zero gravity. And just this afternoon, we were working on the miniature exercise device, which was meant to fit into a capsule just like Orion, and so we can do exercise to maintain our health, so by the time we get to other heavenly bodies or whatever the exploration mission is, we're fit and ready to go.
Well, I really appreciate that, Commander. It's a great insight. You all might be particularly proud with your background to know that today President Trump signed a presidential memorandum directing the Department of Education to devote at least $200 million a year to grant funds toward expanding access to high-quality STEM education and computer science education and to focus those resources on historically underserved groups. I think the President is absolutely determined to make sure that education in America is laying a foundation in mathematics and science and all the technical background that's going to make it possible for more of our little boys and girls to reach for the stars and maybe be able to live the dream that you all are dreaming today. What advice would you have to young people today? How do they make it to the International Space Station and beyond?
Well, I would start off by telling them all to dream big. It was all a dream of ours to someday be up here, and without that dream, we wouldn't be here. So, that's the first step. And then I would tell them to work hard. Somebody once told me, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, and you probably won't be, but there's no reason why you can't work harder than everybody else. So work as hard as you can, but really, what I think is most important is have fun with whatever you do. We love our job. Of course, we love being up here, but the jobs we had before we arrived at NASA, we all loved them. So find a field that you're very passionate about, and if you love it, you're never going to have to work a day in your life. It's just really, really good. So, I would pass that along and let people know there's, anything is possible out there.
Well, thanks for that. Let me ask you a question. In my role as chairman of the National Space Council, and our council will be meeting for the first time in Washington, D.C. In just a few short weeks. I'd love to know, how do you believe your work on the International Space Station day in and day out advances American leadership in space?
We just sent home a SpaceX Dragon cargo vehicle that carried science that we've been working on for a month up here. One of them was growing lung tissue that's going to allow them to ideally figure out cures for lung cancer. So one of our crewmates dubbed it the cancer-seeking missiles. Groundbreaking research like that up here on the International Space Station, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, is what keeps American leadership in space. The fact that there are companies that are building cargo vehicles coming to our space station. The fact that those same companies and new ones are building crewed vehicles that are going to come to our space station. That's how we maintain our leadership. But most of all, the place that you sit and the mission control that we talk to in Houston and all these other NASA centers, it's the work we do every day continuing to live and work in space and dealing with the challenges of not only the daily operations, but the longevity of the operations. You know, we're going into 6 decades of space in America. It's the daily stuff that we do and the challenges we keep putting in front of ourselves that maintain our leadership in space.
Well, that's a great answer, Commander, and I really appreciate that. We look forward to continuing to build on that as we develop policies in a broad range of areas to support American leadership in space. Well, with that, before you sail away, let me just say again, thank you so much for your service to the country. I know I speak on behalf of the President and every American when I say that literally and figuratively we all look up to you, and we are grateful for your courage and your determination and the contribution that you make to American leadership in space. So God bless you and keep you. And I'd like to invite all 3 of you to the White House. I got to look at where you work. I'd love to walk you around where we work and have a chance to shake your hand and thank you after your long journey brings you home. So thanks so much, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Thank you for joining us on the International Space Station. And thank you most of all for your support of our exploration. And I think the National Space Council is going to do great work here in the future. We look forward to seeing it. Thank you. Good evening from the International Space Station.
Great.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
And thank you, President, and all the participants at the Marshall Space Flight Center. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
Today on orbit, we're operating all of the experiments that NASA has from Huntsville radio.
Okay.
So, for example, today we had a pretty busy day. So we did an exercise demonstration that's going to help us for Orion. So it's one of our exploration initiatives. We also did work on a combustion experiment, upgrading our combustion racking station. For both of those activities, we enabled the PD to talk from their home. For instance, one's at Glenn, one's at Johnson, to talk to the crew on the space station. Both of those activities, like for instance the combustion research, not only fighting fires in space, but also developing better engines for space. And then the third one I wanted to tell you about today, we did a Russian joint experiment that is related to STEM. So the cosmonaut, Sasha, he set up a camera in the window, and middle school students from around the world are going to get to take photos. They get to go online, choose what photo they want to take, and then they can build their school, their class, can build a lesson plan around that photo.
Is that right? That's great.
So that's just today.
Yeah, that's great.
Every day we're doing things like that.
So where are they on the globe? Can I see that?
That is the satellite now. The globe here, they're flying over the South Pacific.
Where are they actually physically?
South Pacific, yeah.
Okay, so, all right.
So I want to introduce you to a few folks.
Yeah, great, good, thank you.
So this right here is Stephen Byer.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Vice President. It's an honor. I appreciate your support.
So he's the product and operations director. He's the leader of the team. 24/7, 365 over here. The other
Yes. All the payload planning. Yes. Well, we have our PDs and our science teams are located all over the world. And we talk to them on the groups, but we do all the integration here.
You run it out here?
Yes, this room. Everything that happens gets on Astronaut's Day. Everything we do, we answer all the questions. Yes, we handle the vehicle, we handle the science.
Very good. Sounds good. How long have you been here?
I've been here 15 years. I've been a pod about 10, 11. I think
stay?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Thank you.
Hi.
I'm Josh Johnson. Good to meet you. About 2.5 years.
Great. What did you do before that?
I worked on the James Webb Space Telescope. So we were building the Sun Shield. I'm an operations technician. So basically, we are timekeepers and also real-time timekeepers and kind of like quality control. So if PDs or scientists from all over the world check in and check out with us, we make sure that they only have a certain amount of time that they can spend on their science. We make sure that it's going according to their plan, and if it slips out a little bit, then we call an audible and we try to accommodate them to get their technical objectives met.
Wow, very cool. All over the world.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's great.
It's nice to meet you.
This guy was a good pickup, huh? Huh? Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.